Well, hello guys. This is Katie with Vintage and Vinyl, back with another great video for you today. I am so excited to continuing my read of this 1950s saucy romance novel called House of Flesh. We are in chapter 6, and I am so excited to be reading that with you. Now, I am in a little bit of a different location today because I'm at my brother's actually taking care of his cat Clyde. So today we're getting a special treat because I'm going to show you Clyde before the reading. He's such a sweet cat. And so we are live from my brother's living room today. And I've got Clyde here. He wants to say hello to all of you guys. So let me show you Mr. Clyde. Say hi to Clyde. He's such a sweet kitty cat. And he is saying hello to all of you guys and joining us for our reading tonight. And I am wearing my great-grandmother's brooch today. I'm so excited about this with my gray hat. So I think this is lots of fun, and I am so glad to be with you for another fun reading. Now, this is a pretty saucy chapter. I did skim through it a little bit for the live, and I am excited to share with you a little bit more about the Doans, because as we all know, the Doans are pretty interesting characters in this story. So this is going to be lots of fun. I see we have Vintage Vinny in the chat. Hello, Vinny. I'm so glad you are joining us tonight. And we have Daniel. Tacky is me. Hello, Daniel. Welcome, welcome. And Dolores is joining us from England. Hello, Dolores. And Belinda Carroll is here. And Gina Marie. Hi, Gina. And we have, let's see who else is in the chat. Man, everything jumps. Oh, we have Kara here with Anjo Gals, Needful Curiosities. And Christy is joining us. Hello, Tippy Wings Vintage, Christy. And Victoria H is here. Hello, hello. And did I miss anyone in the chat? Belinda Carroll is joining us. Hi, guys. I'm so glad you are here tonight. This is going to be a fun episode of this book reading. This is a very fun chapter. And, you know, it's so fun to see what's in these books from the 1950s, because we would consider this pretty racy for the 50s. But if you actually go back and study the 50s, there were things that were happening that would probably shock us today. But this is not really saucy in today's standards. This is just more a little bit sleazy than it is what we would consider really saucy. So this is fun. This is a gold medal book by Fawcett, and I've talked about gold medal books before and how they changed the publishing industry. So it's pretty cool to be reading a gold medal book that really was the first true, oh, they had paperback books, but the first mass-produced paperback books to the public, and it's fun to have some neat piece of publishing history here. Our rockin' rodent, Doo-Wop Bob, is in the chat. Hello, Bob. Welcome. I'm glad you're joining us. And yes, Kara's saying, I love older fiction, especially the thrill horror books. Wow, I'm going to be reading some fun books for Halloween. I've got some fun horror books. I think that will be kind of fun from the 50s. Now, this one might turn out to be a little bit of a murder mystery, so we'll have to see what happens. Book Bewitched is joining us. Hello, Book Bewitched. I'm glad you're tuning in tonight. And am I missing anybody else? If I did, I'm so sorry. Oh, and Joan Johnson is here. Lots of folks in the chat. That is awesome. And Dana is tuning in. Hello, Dana. Welcome, welcome. So, guys, if you do not have some vintage and vinyl merch yet, make sure you get your merch. The link to the merch is down below in my description box. Just click on my Linktree link, and you can get your very own Jello merch or vintage and vinyl merch. I've got shirts out now. I'm still waiting for mine to come in the mail, so hopefully I get that soon so that I can wear some of my vintage and vinyl merch. So that's going to be very exciting. And you know what? Maybe I've been thinking about this recently. Maybe I need to have some vintage and vinyl hats. Would that be fun? So you can have your own vintage and vinyl hat. I may work on that. And Daniel was the first buyer. He got a blue shirt, a blue vintage and vinyl shirt. So I'm so glad you got one, Daniel. And I'm excited to get mine. And as I mentioned, I'm wearing my great-grandmother's brooch. It is really cool, silver starburst, and I love that with my gray hat. So that's what I'm wearing today, and I see lots of folks joining us, which is fantastic. And if I missed you, I'm so sorry. The chat moves fast and it does jump in StreamYard. I do want to make sure that we get a chance tonight to tune into all the events happening on YouTube after my live. So make sure tonight that you tune into the Vintage Rescue Squad with Misty at Thrifter Junker Vintage Hunter, Tina from A Vision of Vintage Co., the fabulous Michael Todd from the Cult of Vintage, who has his new YouTube video up. His first YouTube video went up today, and it is fantastic. So go check that out in the Vintage Rescue Squad at 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern. So I'm looking forward to that. And then also Tim, and over the years, has his live vintage sale at 8 o'clock, which is very exciting. He always has some gorgeous glass and fabulous vintage items for sale. So that will also be happening at 8 o'clock. And we also have George, Uncle Professor George. He has his premiere at 8. So lots of things happening tonight. And I am so excited to tune into all of those. I'll probably be live hopping, as I always do, and try to be in multiple chats at one time. It's always hard when the schedule gets full, but we all make it work. And let's say hello to a few more people in the chat today. I see, let's see the chat here. Vinny's saying that he needs to get some of his own merch. Yes, you do, Vinny, because I would rock a vintage Vinny shirt with a pin-up and Saucy saying, or what would Vinny say? I would so wear that. So you got to work on that. Melissa Nichols is joining us. Hello, Melissa Nichols. I'm glad you're coming in. Helen Booty is here. Hello, Helen Booty. Yes, Michael Todd did a great job. He really did. It was fabulous seeing his first video today. And if I missed you, again, I'm so sorry. Everybody comes in and then the chat moves really fast. So, guys, we're going to jump into Chapter 6 of House of Flesh, this 1950s gold medal book. It's pretty saucy, and I'm excited to share this with you. This is a little bit of a longer chapter today, and then some shorter chapters coming up. Oh, and Chad is joining us from Retro Days. Hi, Chad. Welcome to the chat. And Tia Fane is here from Canada. Lots of fabulous folks joining. And Kat, Calypso Antiques. Ooh, I like your new logo, Kat. Maybe you've had that for a little while and I just didn't notice. Saucy. Yes, saucy. So this is just so much fun. I really enjoy doing this little book series, and it's fun to read this to you guys and to see what's in these 1950s books. They're just so fascinating to me. And I've got a little collection now, so we won't run out of books. We'll have a whole series of these books, which is going to be fun. So guys, Chapter 6 coming up right now. House of Flesh by Bruno Fisher, Chapter 6. Next day, I had lunch with Mr. and Mrs. Hickey in their kitchen, old-fashioned in its bigness and brightness, and modern with its gleaming gadgets. Over the tuna fish salad, I brought the conversation around to the Dones. Quite a place, I said. Place or woman? Mr. Hickey asked with an impish smile. Place and woman and man and dogs. The whole setup is just slightly weird. No wonder people make up fantastic stories. Mrs. Hickey put down her fork. What makes you think they're fantastic? Actually, all I've heard was something vague about his former wife and those dogs. Of course, there can't be anything in it. Well, how do you know there can't? She demanded, as if I were challenging a cherished local tradition. Well, is there? I have no idea, she said crisply and resumed eating. Mr. Hickey grinned. Let's stop being devious, Harry. You're fishing for the story of Kenneth Doane and his woman, and why not? Sticking one's nose into other people's business is the essence of good conversation. Alice Barton was his first wife. She was a teacher in the district school, an attractive, refined, quiet girl who never had much to say. Seems Doane doesn't care for talkative women, I commented. Oh, you found the current Mrs. Doane like that too, eh? Well, yes. His first wife, Alice Barton, wasn't a native. She came from the other end of the state. No parents living, she told me, more or less alone in the world. I was the member of the school board at the time, and besides, she used to... He stopped speaking. There was a look of pain on Mrs. Hickey's strong face. Anyway, he resumed, one summer 4 years ago, as I recall, Alice went off on summer vacation and came back a week before school opened with Kenneth Doane and a wedding ring. Nobody knew a thing about him except that he was a licensed veterinarian. He had no money. The story is that with her savings, they made the down payment on the old Leonard place. You've seen it. It's a run when they bought it, and it still is. All they did to it was put in some plumbing and a heating system. Evidently, he's still poor, I said. Doesn't being a veterinarian pay around here? No, not well, and they say he's not very bright about money or really anything else, if you ask me. Alice, of course, continued to teach after her marriage. She had to, though there was also the fact that she was very fond of teaching. I still don't remember why a sensible and intelligent girl like a married a dull and shiftless man like him, Mrs. Hickey put in. Jessica, my dear, all women aren't like you, preferring a husband with brains and character instead of good looks. You must admit he's quite the hunk of a man. Well, the following summer, that was 2 years after they were married, they shut up the house and left, just like that. No goodbyes to anybody. One day they closed down the house and were gone. With 2 dogs, of course. They must have piled the 4 monsters into their station wagon. And the 2 of them? The 2? Mrs. Hickey said. How do you know? Nobody saw them leave. No, nobody saw them leave, he conceded. Nobody knew where they went. Nobody saw Alice or heard of her. The school term opened and not a word from her that she wasn't coming back to teach. You can make any kind of old wives' tale that you wish. An idle, any kind of old wives' tale that you wish. Pages just came out of the book, folks. What you get with old books. They just all went wonky on me here. Any old wives' tale, and gossip certainly did. Anyway, some 8 months later, a year ago, last spring, that was, Kenneth Doane was suddenly back in his house. He and the dogs and another woman with another wedding ring. The present Mrs. Doane. Not a word of explanation to anyone. He was simply back, taking up where he had left off, except with a different wife. I said, no doubt that's where the story had started, that he murdered his first wife. Wasn't it inevitable, given that setup and that place, which is why you've aptly described it as weird? People's imaginations will work overtime, and given those vicious dogs, why not make the story gruesome while you're at it? Is the present Mrs. Doane a local girl? Humph, Mrs. Hickey snorted. She came up to Norset with that no-good George Wellman. Any relative to Polly Wellman? Mrs. Hickey answered that. Her brother, a slick article. I disliked him as a boy, too conceiving. Some years ago, he moved to New York, where he's a gambler, I hear. Perhaps you've heard of him, Harry, or know him. I understand there's a lot of gambling on basketball games. The law says I'm not supposed to even say hello to a gambler. A good law. Where are we? Oh, yes, the present Mrs. Doane hadn't been a complete stranger to Norset. When Doane and Alice were still living here, she had spent several hours with George Wellman. You can speculate on the relationship between her and George at the time, but I prefer to leave a scandal to a clean-minded woman like my wife. Your sarcasm doesn't faze me, Mrs. Hickey snapped. Didn't she and George drive up from New York together? And didn't they spend a few hours? They spent the night. Women, he said, you can't reach any conclusions from desire or innocent facts. They spent that day and night with George's family, and it's undeniable that she slept with his sister Polly. He turned his head to me. This, of course, was about a year before she returned to Norset as the second Mrs. Doane. The prevailing theory is that she saw the manly torso of his and fell for him in a split second, and that Mrs. Doane reciprocated. What did he see in her? Mrs. Hickey voiced the age-old complaint. Alice was so much prettier and nicer than that wooden-faced brunette. He smiled tolerantly. That's a woman's opinion, which doesn't count because Doan happens to be a man. Men don't always prefer women who are merely pretty and nice. Well, they must have met that night because she was not again seen in North Set until, as I said, about a year later when he returned without Alice and the present Mrs. Doan, his wife. Wait, I said, is he supposed to have murdered Alice before or after she left North Set? Oh, it's not a superstition, he corrected me. It's talk, and as a lawyer, I can tell you there's some thumping difference between fact and talk. But if you grant the assumption he would have fed her to his dogs or whatever he did with her just before he left. That's why my wife makes such a point of the fact that nobody saw him when he drove off. Alice may have been with him or not, for all anybody. I realized that I would have made another and more thorough search for the bones Maxine had found. But shouldn't the police have looked into Alice's disappearance as a matter of routine? I said. Your son Bill must have known her. He must have heard the stories. He's a Saint Sergeant. Abruptly, Mrs. Hickey rose and went to the electric range. Bill did look into it, Mr. Hickey said, as he picked at remains of his salad. He questioned Doan, and Doan said that he and Alice had been divorced in Florida. Mrs. Hickey returned to the table with the coffee pot. A cigarette now dangled from the corner of her mouth. And Bill believed him, she said scornfully. What would you have, woman? Her husband said. Bill isn't paid to devote his time or energy to every wild tale inspired by wagging tongues. He asked Mrs. Doan and received a reasonable answer. Pass the sugar, Harry. We drank coffee in silence. Then, trying to sound casual, I asked, by the way, what's the present Mrs. Doan's first name? I'm sure I've never heard it, Mrs. Hickey replied. Nobody in town is familiar with her enough to call her anything but Mrs. Doan. But ask my husband. Her mouth tightened and tingled. He painted her picture. To me, Jessica, she was, is so strictly to Mrs. Doan, he addressed me. I asked her to pose for me, and she consented. I did an oil of her and presented it to her. No, Harry, I don't know her first name. After lunch, Conrad Hickey invited me up to his studio. It had once been in the attic. An entire north half of the roof had been torn out and replaced with sloping glass. It seemed ideal, but he complained that it was too hot in the summer and cold in the winter, and that anyway he preferred painting outdoors. I want to show you something, he said. He took out the keys and unlocked a built-in cabinet, but he didn't open the door right away. His manner had become unusually grave for him. Before I do, Harry, understand this. I don't make a practice of doing those imaginative nudes of real women. Perhaps I have a latent sense of decency. There were, however, two exceptions. One, the pastel I did of your ex-wife the other morning. I couldn't resist, and I'm not going to apologize again. That's all right, I said. Gail feels the same way about clothes. She genuinely wears the minimum the law allows. I drew cigarette smoke into my lungs. I'm guessing that the other exception is Mrs. Doan. Yes. He reached into the cabinet and brought out a fairly large mounted canvas. He placed it against the wall and stepped out of the way. She wasn't merely nude, she was naked. Nothing I had seen of her had been as good and as true, in a way as shocking. I had to stop and clear my throat. Don't tell me she posed for you like that. Hardly. All four settings were on her porch, and her husband was usually around. She wore a rather form-fitting and revealing evening gown, but respectable enough. You'll find the original painting in her house, if you ever enter it, and I'm afraid you will. Before I presented it to her, I made this copy up here. What do you think of it? I made an effort to sound objective. You drew her a bit, flashier than she is. Do you already know, Harry? I flushed angrily. Look, I don't have to stand for you being nasty. I'm sorry, I wouldn't know either, and probably you're right. And I made her too fleshy, but I did it on purpose. I wasn't striving for a reproduction. I was trying to say something. She could be as thin as a rail, and she would still give the impression of fleshiness. A woman of flesh. Isn't that the way she affected you? I don't know. I lied. And the face, when I stared to paint the original portrait, I thought her face was wooden, expressionless, but I soon discovered how wrong I was. An artist must look beneath the surface. It's a stimulus face, a face that waits in repose to be periodically awakened. Do you understand what I'm saying? I couldn't breathe while I looked at the painting. I turned away. Did you ever watch a praying mantis? He went on. How very still, merging with the vegetation, waiting with deathless patience, then pouncing. And you must have heard how the female praying mantis devours her mate during the very act of sex. His voice lowered. Harry, don't let her devour you. What? I stared at him as he stood before me, slight and with his pinched face so solemn that there was nothing of it pixie left. What the devil are you saying? I like you, Harry. Don't let her devour you. You're crazy. I hardly know her. You hardly know her, but for the first time since you've been here, you've consistently asked about her, and you had a meal with us so that you could pump us about her. I haven't wanted to get into the habit of imposing on Mrs. Hickey. But today that didn't matter, because you'd been at the Doan house last evening and had to know more about her, and you're anxious to learn her first name. I said stiffly, I'm sorry, I accepted your hospitality. It won't happen again. Don't be a blithering idiot, Harry. We're the same kind of men. The difference is that I am so much older and she's unavailable, so my mind isn't closed by her. He scowled at the picture. I'm not much of an artist. Probably I didn't even get into it when I intended to, but you ought to see a little of it. Not evil. I don't think that is. A man-eating beast isn't any more evil than a beast-eating man. But they're dangerous to each other. Look at Harry. Don't you see the menace of her? I looked again and saw the portrait of a woman's body in rich, expressive oils. A body and face, beautiful or not, it didn't matter. The vividly revealed woman who yesterday had lightly touched my arm with the back of her hand had charged me with something that was beyond relentless. I said, all I see is that you have no right to paint such a picture without a woman's consent and consent, and then go showing it around. Only you and I know it exists. He carried the painting back to the cabinet. And perhaps I shouldn't have shown it to you. Why had he? Not for the reason he had stated, to discourage desire. He would know that it was bound to have the opposite effect. But I hope it will put you on guard, he was saying as he turned from the cabinet. He knew better than this. The painting was a lure, not a warning. On guard against what? I said. He looked at me for a long time, and I couldn't meet his gaze. We men, he said softly, we like to feel superior to those male dogs who hung around outside your bungalow. But we are. I was seething with fury. Who the hell appointed you the guardian of any morals? For that matter, you could stand some looking into. Isn't that the truth? He said cheerfully. Let's not quarrel. No woman is worth it, particularly at any age. A friend sent me a bottle of Portuguese brandy. I haven't opened it yet. Help me sample it? I followed him downstairs. Why, I asked myself, was subtly and diabolically trying to drive me into her arms. That question assumed that he wanted to and that she would have me. He wasn't a stupid man, not realizing what he was doing. He was one of the cleverest men I knew. We were in the living room, and he poured brandy, and we raised our glasses. To Maxine's suitors, he tossed impishly, our understanding and sympathy. I hesitated with the glass halfway to my mouth. He watched me with his grin broadening as it wondered if I would throw the in his face. I drank it down and left. Well, guys, that is it for chapter 6. That nude, holy moly, that's the only other nude that he's painted other than the ex-wife, so that's really interesting. And that house, and that whole situation with the Dones, I really think that he murdered his wife. Oh my goodness, that is very, very saucy. Yes, good imagery there. I agree, Bob. It's a very well-written book, I have to say. And Mel is joining us from Finland. Hello, Mel. Welcome, welcome. And Hearts. Oh, good. I'm glad. Yes, I'm so glad you enjoyed that. Yes, bedtime story. Very whoa. It is. It's so, yes, it's well written. One of the things that's hard reading this to you guys is that the pages are falling out of this book because it's older. And so sometimes it's easy to lose your place. And the words are very, packed together. See, the whole front of the book just fell out. So it's easy to get kind of lost, but it's fun read and really a great book. So I am so excited to continue with more chapters. We will have chapter 7 next week, and I'm just so excited for it. One of the things I love about our Katie is her loyalty. She deserves ours, and YouTube promotes according to the algorithms, part of which is the number of thumbs up. Yes, so please thumbs up. Yes, thank you, Book Bewitched. Yes, please thumbs up. Hello, Maria. Thanks so much for joining us. Who else do I have in the chat here? Let's see. Okay, I see Maria coming in. Yes, Angela, are you in the chat? I hope your mom's doing okay. I am praying for you, Angela, and thinking about you today. And Angela could definitely use our prayers. Let's see what else is in the chat. Oh, Dana set up her first IG account. Well, isn't that exciting, Dana? I really hope that it goes well for you, and it will be fun to connect with all of us on IG. IG is really the place to be because that's where you find out all of the fun sneak peeks and things happening within our YouTube community and fun vintage photos of all kinds of great finds. So YouTube is not just the place to be. Instagram is as well. Hello, Nancy. Thanks so much for joining us. I appreciate you popping in today. And let's see, he killed Alice because she fed Jello mold to him for dinner. I love it, Bob. Yes, that's right. Yes, I'm sure no one wanted to eat that Jello back then. So that's probably why he killed her off. Dr. Doan's a very interesting character. He seems from the story that he's a real looker. He's very handsome, but then, he's just strange, and he just doesn't seem like he's going to be the best person to take care of the dog. I'm definitely interested to see what happens, if there's going to be any more horse meat in the future. That's just such an odd situation. So I can't wait to find out more. I'm looking forward to that. Yes, saucy books. What ribbon is for? Tying saucy books pages. Yes, we need to tie this back together because this is falling apart. This poor book has seen lots of day. So I will be working on that. Oh, thank you, Pamela. I so appreciate that. Katie, I think the shirt I ordered from you and Angela came in the mail today. Yay, Nancy. That is so very exciting. I'm so glad that shirt came. Woohoo! I'm really excited to get my Jello shirt. I got Angela's shirt in the mail, so that's exciting. I need to order the Vintage Community Pet merch. If you don't know, Angela has the Vintage Community Pet merch with all of the different resellers and YouTubers' pets on it. Vinny's pet is on there. Bun, Dust Bunny, Patrick's Huck is on there. Louie's on there. Tippy's on there, so many other great pets. So definitely go check out that merch. And of course, if you want Jello merch, that's in my link down below. Mel is asking us, how old is this book? And Mel, that is a great question. This book is from 1950. It was published by the Fawcett Publications. It's a gold medal book. So this book has some age to it, but it is doing pretty well for all those years. It's only the first couple of pages that are falling out. The rest of the book is in really pretty good shape. And I, again, am just so looking forward to seeing what happens. These books just fascinate me. The shirts are really soft, Daniel. I love those shirts. The comfort tees are so, so soft. Let's see. Sounds like I missed a good one. Hi, Tammy. Thanks so much for joining. Well, the good thing is you can always catch the replay. That's the fun part. Dolores is saying, oh, Lord, that was actually a situation here. The food companies used horse meat for frozen dinner. Oh, no. You know what? I've always heard that about Taco Bell. I don't know that it's true, but there's always been a running joke about Taco Bell using strange mystery meat. I still like Taco Bell. Their food's good, but there's always been something like that circulating around. Let's see, Nancy saying, back then the glue binding had no rubber in it. It was mostly horse glue, and it gets very brittle over time and turns brown. Well, yes, that makes sense, Nancy, because the book definitely's got some brown age to it, and it makes sense that the pages just aren't as firm anymore in the book, but they're still awesome to have it. It's still amazing it's around. Then thank you all. I'm off to watch all of the beautiful things sell to other people. Love to all. Oh, bye, Book Bewitched. You have a good night. Thanks for joining. Nancy saying, well, soldiers in wars have eaten horse meats for centuries. Just saying. I mean, yes, that's very true, Nancy. That is so true. Nancy's always got the interesting facts. So if you're not subscribed to Nancy at This Overstuffed House, you really should be. She is so knowledgeable, and she has some great live sales on Thursday nights at 11 p.m., the Night Owl sale. And I always learn so much from her. So definitely go check out Nancy. Let's see what Vinny's comment is. I'm interested to see. I hope the meat they used in the foods didn't come from part of the horse. Oh, Vinny. Yes, that wouldn't be very good. Although, I've had some interesting things before. Let's see. Nancy had a misprint youth reading firsthand accounts of history. Oh, Nancy, that is interesting. Oh, Bob is saying he's got to go. No worries, Bob. You have a good night. Thanks for joining my rockin' rodent. I will see you later over on the Vinyl Chat. And if you're not subscribed to Johnny G's Vinyl Treasure Show, that's where I am every Saturday night between 10 p.m. and 1 a.m. And we're talking vinyl and listen to some rare records. And Bob, who's always in the chat on Monday, is from that show. So he's always in the chat hanging out. And it's a really great time to hear some really rare, unique, and fun 50s and 60s vinyl. So go check out Johnny G's Vinyl Treasure Show. Yes, Vinny, you are always very clever. All right. Oh, in Japan, it's a delicacy. Well, there's all kinds of delicacies in Japan. I was reading about octopus in Japan, and they eat live octopus. And if you don't eat it correctly, it can kill you. So that's always really interesting. I like that. I think it's called Strange Eats is the show. I think it's got Andrew Zimmern, who's one of my favorite Food Network chefs. But if you follow that, you can see all kinds of food from around the world. And it is so, so interesting. It really, really is. So guys, I want to make sure that we get a chance to get on over to all the events happening this evening. It is 7:05. Make sure that you check out the Vintage Rescue Squad tonight. That's at 8 o'clock over on Misty's channel. That's Thrifter, Junker, Vintage Hunter. She's got Tina from A Vision and Vintage Co. and the fabulous Michael Todd. So I'm very, very excited about this episode. Also, there's a amazing live vintage sale. Tim, at Over the Years, has some incredible glass, and that will be happening at 8 o'clock as well. And the George the Antique Nomad is going to be on at 8 o'clock tonight with his premiere. So lots of fun chats. I'll be hopping around as the schedule gets full and lots of lives happen. It just becomes harder and harder to not overlap. It's not done on purpose, but it's just impossible to get all the chats separated out. So I will be hopping around, and that's what you guys can do too if you have multiple devices. devices, or you can pick what you want to watch, but I'll be seeing you on those chats, and I'm very excited for that. Let's see. Vinny is saying, I don't think I could eat living octopus or shrimp. Yes, Vinny, I don't think you're a seafood guy. You don't care for seafood. And I have to say, living in Florida, I love seafood. I absolutely adore shrimp, mussels, clams, lobster, crab. I mean, all seafoods, crawfish. Oh, I love crawfish. But I just love seafood. But I don't know that I could do raw octopus, raw live octopus. I don't think I'd be brave enough to do. But I do love other types of seafood. And of course, calamari is delicious. I see lots of people saying that we love our seafood. Yes. Okay. Oh, yes, George is on the Vintage Rescue Squad. That's right. It's George on Vintage Rescue Squad as well with Tina of Vision and Vintage Co. I knew I left somebody else out, but I just couldn't remember. It's been a little bit crazy recently, so trying to keep up with all the scheduling is hard, but Angela makes it a little bit easier for us all with her calendar. It's on Instagram, so if you want to know what's happening for the week, go check out A. Marksberry. She's got a great Instagram and works really hard on the calendar, and her mom is not doing well, so we could all pray for her and send her good thoughts her way. And Nancy is saying something about, said, I tried octopus and it was chewing rubber. I did not do that again. I can imagine it's very rubbery. Gator tail is very rubbery, and I'm just not a big fan of gator tail. I've had frog legs too. That's a big thing here in the South, and I don't really care for it. I know a lot of people like it, but that's just not my speed. But I'll try anything once. Oh, yes, raw clams with cocktail sauce. Yes, I love that, Kara, and I love oysters. I could eat my weight in oysters. Oysters on the half shell with a little bit of cocktail sauce and lemon and a cracker. Chef's kiss. That is so good. Oh, you love raw salmon. It's one of our traditional foods over here. So good with rye bread. Oh, I bet it is. You know, I love smoked salmon. I love, all salmon really, but bagel and lox is one of my favorite things. I haven't had it in a while, but oh, I love good bagel and lox with the capers. It's just to die for. Vinny, you don't like cocktail sauce? Oh man, I don't think Vinny's a big seafood guy, but that's okay. That's why there's so many different foods out in the world, is that we can all have something that we like. Oh yes, I do. I love sushi. I could eat all the raw sushi in the world. I love sushi. Yes, let's see. Oh yes, buffalo and bison burgers. Yeah, they are very good. I love a good burger. Yeah, gator tail's not really for me, but it has a following here. People love gator tail, and it's on pretty much every menu here at local restaurants. You can get gator tail, and it's just not, it's really chewy. It's like eating rubber. Nancy saying she loves salmon. There's a wonderful Japanese restaurant that opened near me. My one splurge is to go get sushi twice a month. Yes. Oh, I love sushi. I love the rainbow roll. That's one of my favorite things is rainbow roll. I also love, here we have Mount Fuji roll, which is basically fried shrimp tempura. And then it's got the crab stick, which is not really crab. It's fish painted to look like crab, but it's so good. And then they put eel sauce. Now, if you have never had eel sauce, it is to die for. It is sweet. It is delicious. It's really worth trying. I love eel sauce. So that's what I have with my sushi. It's just so good. I love sushi. Oh, you like bagels and lox too? Yes. Oh, man. I love a good bagel and lox. When I was in New York, I had one of the best bagels I've ever had in my life was a New York bagel. And it's just a wonderful, wonderful bagel shop in New York. And it is in Chelsea, in the Chelsea Markets. That's the old meat packing district. And it was a little place inside the market. And I had a bagel and lox. Oh, it was so good. That was my lunch one of the days. Smoked herring is also one of my favorites. Yes, herring is delicious. You know, my dad for the Easter, he always has a big crawfish boil. And my stepmom's from New Orleans, so they will fly in crawfish. And they had some this weekend. And, oh, I was so jealous. I missed out on all that good crawfish. I mean, when we were growing up, they would fly in the crawfish and the shrimp, and they would set up tables. And my job was always to put the newspaper down, and then they'd just come in with the crawfish, and it was all out on these folding tables. And basically, you would just sit and eat all the crawfish until you couldn't eat anymore. And it was so good. Oh, I miss that. Oh, I miss that. I don't know if Anjo Gals Needful Treasures has a channel, Nancy's asking, but if you do, go ahead and put it in the chat. Oh, she does. Okay, wonderful, Kara. So if someone can link that, we can all go subscribe. That will be wonderful. I'm all for, dropping links when I have a live chat. Because it's not a sale, and I think it's really great that we can just click on the link and go subscribe. That's really helpful. So thanks, guys, for joining me today. Make sure you follow all the other events coming up at 8 o'clock. Lots of things happening tonight. I'm guessing George will not have a premiere since he's on Vintage Rescue Squad, which I don't know how I forgot about that, but I did. So George will be on tonight, so I'm assuming he will not have a premiere. So it will be just Vintage Rescue Squad and then Tim Over the Years. So I'll have two devices running, and I'll hop between the two. So guys, thank you so much for joining me, and it is so fun to continue this read of this 1950s saucy romance novel. Well, it's a kind of a romance novel, but it's also a little bit of a mystery because there's some strange things going on at the Doan's house. So we'll have to wait for next week to see what happens. So guys, much love to you all. I hope, as always, you will stay in, stay safe, and binge YouTube. And I'll see y'all Wednesday for my vintage show and tell with trusty Huckster Mercantile and his fabulous vintage travel collection. Bye-bye, guys.